question regarding specificity. We've been talking about going general, but isn't?
When you are tuned in, tapped in, turned on, be as specific as you can be. Because that's where the power and the fun and the clarity and the power is. In other words, we're not trying to guide you from specifics. We just want you to wait till you're tuned in before you get specific. And then it's way fun.
Isn't everything specific? Isn't everything specific? Isn't every thought, every emotion, every movement, every action, every intentional or unintentional thought, emotion, isn't everything specific at the end of the day?
Well, it has the potential of becoming specific. And the more you focus upon it, it will. In other words, what genius is just attention to a subject. If you give enough attention to a subject, the specifics of it will come. So you can be a genius about unwanted things or a genius about wanted things, but the specifics will come because law of attraction demands it and dictates it. So that's an accurate statement. But you have control over the amount of, in other words, you have the ability. Our friend was telling us, he keeps meditating and going general. You can hold yourself in a non-specific state. But law of attraction is going to keep giving you something that is a perfect match to wherever you are. So it is logical. You are accurate. It is logical that everything is going to become increasingly specific. That's why the universe is expanding. That's why you all have come forth to explore the contrast, because in the doing of that, the specifics must continue to be. We're just saying you have the ability to manage it better than most of you are. Most people think that when something happens, they should talk about it, whether they want it or not. We don't agree with that. We don't think you should talk about something that you don't want to keep perpetuating. But there's something compelling about doing it because it's a reality. But if we were standing in your physical shoes, we wouldn't. First, a thought, a non-thought is most general. And in non-thought, you will feel the resonance of your source, which will feel like love. Next specific is a thought. Further specific is a word. Further specific is action. So a lot of people just want to jump right into action. They just want to do something, just want to do something to fix something. And we say, whoa, slow it down, go general, wait for the inspiration for the thought, then wait for the inspiration for the word, then wait for the inspiration for the action, and then everything will unfold in a way that is not just pleasing, but really, really fun.
I'm in a completely no-mind state at the moment, so I'm about as general as can be at the moment.
So what do you want to talk about? We want to say to you that everything that you said just now, we are in complete agreement with. We're just clarifying that when you said it's inevitable that things become specific, we say in the big scheme of things, it is absolutely inevitable that things become specific, but that you can guide it more than you know. And if you take the time to guide it from that general place, then you control your point of attraction at the basis, so that when it starts getting specific, it starts getting specific in the way you want it to. Where if people are just jumping into things as they are, then they keep perpetuating what they don't want. There's a war against drugs and a war against crime and a war against teenage pregnancy and a war against cancer and a war against AIDS and a war against war. And all of those things are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because somebody's got to get to the general place before they start getting specific.
Isn't that an action of specificity, of getting to a general place? Isn't that a movement or a pivoting of specificity towards generality?
Yes, it is. And it is so much easier to pivot when you're general than when you're specific. Because when you've got this raging, know what you don't want going on over here, you're not going to find the vibrational flip side of that. You can't. Law of attraction is dishing up too much of this. But when you're general, you can flip. So if we were standing in your physical shoes and we wanted to pivot to the other side of it, we'd go general, 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 we'd take the pivot, and then we'd get specific.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
I have a bit of a mystery. It started last night as I was preparing for the seminar, meditating, getting into bed, appreciating my pillow. Listening to your words, actually, before I went to sleep. And about 3 a.m, I woke up, wide awake, sat up, and the lights went on in my room, unprovoked or touched by me. And I got the picture of my father, who has passed maybe 3 years ago. And I also remembered that I had been contemplating apparitions before I went to sleep, and debating whether I believed in it or not, whether they existed or they didn't exist. So hit me with it.
So what's the mystery?
Are there apparitions?
Well, are there, what do you mean by that? Is there energy that has the ability to be translated into something visual by me? Do I have the ability to translate vibration into something visual?
Yes, is it all coming from me?
Well, it's your interpretation of it. In other words, you are beholding it, you are interpreting it. Mm-hmm. But the reason that this is such a wonderful conversation to have right now in the context of everything that we've been talking about is that we started to say to you when you said, I have a mystery that just started last night. We started to say to you, at first, everything that's in the vortex, which is everything that you've been asking for, is a mystery. It's a mystery until you're able to decipher it, in which case it comes into full view and is no longer mysterious. Okay. And so this is the conversation that we've been having all day here today. And so then you say you went to bed contemplating these things. And so what woke you up? Well, you don't know what woke you up, but you were awake. And when you became awake, what did you experience? You experienced something that was tangible and physical, to which you had no physical explanation, which is exactly what we've been talking about, that when you are aligned, when you are in resonance with the vortex, then the next logical step is that something occurs, then the revelation of it, in other words, then you are in the place where you can, it's not that it is revealed to you, it is that you are translating. Your words were, am I the one that is doing it? The answer is always yes, you are. Because without your vibrational cooperation, it could not be. So all of the parts were present. You ask, and you allowed, and the manifestation occurs. Do you accept that as a manifestation?
Oh, yeah. Couldn't get bigger.
So if it is a manifestation, on the direct heels of your asking, the real mystery is, why did you ask? Why do you think it's a mystery? Are you so accustomed to not believing in something that even when you got into a place where you allowed yourself to believe and it occurred, you still couldn't believe it?
I think I'm more accustomed to listening to too many viewpoints.
Well, that'll get you.
Yeah.
So what's your conclusion now? In other words, tell us again what you asked before you went to sleep.
I was contemplating whether apparitions existed, whether they were disembodied spirits actually getting up to mischief in life, or whether it was a projection from me.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Jerry and Esther have some friends that were living in Albuquerque, and they visited them occasionally. And Mac made his transition into non-physical, and Doris remained for several years following. And Doris was talking to Jerry and Esther, and in fact talking to Abraham on the telephone one day at the time that Esther was still doing telephone consultations years ago. And Mac was an electrical engineer. And after he made his transition, her doorbell would ring, and lights would come on, and appliances would just start
Yeah.
with no, and she wanted to know, is this Mac? And the answer that we gave her was absolutely, because her desire to play with him, her desire to know that he was still reachable, her desire to know that he was still aware of her, these were powerful desires that she had, that were active within her. And so those desires and it usually happened in the middle of the night, which was really annoying to her.
Yeah.
She said, well, could you ask him to show up in the daytime? And we said, your state of allowing is keener in the middle of the night, because when you are awakened from a sleep, there is not active resistance within you. So what you've been asking can more readily be answered. So she was very pleased and very satisfied to know that he was ringing her bells from his broader non-physical perspective. And then Esther, they were in Texas at the time, Jerry and Esther went out to dinner. And as they were driving, Esther is relaying this story to Jerry, who had not heard the consultation. And Esther said, since Mac is also our friend and aware of us, I wonder if he can present a manifestation that will indicate his awareness of us. And at that moment, the cruise control on the car turned itself on and increased the speed by about 20 miles an hour. And Esther said, well, apparently so. In other words, it made them all realize that there's no separation. There's no separation in vibration. The only separation that exists is the separation in thought that makes you on a different wavelength, that makes something inaccessible to you. So the answer is, it takes two to have a communication, always. And it takes two to have two aspects to have a manifestation, always. It takes a desire for it and an allowing of it. It's always the same. So then they've finished dinner. She's back in a room that they have in that house that was a packing room. It was a ceiling-to-floor, wall-to-wall shelves room with tables in it that they used for packing and unpacking, because that's what they were doing constantly. And so Esther is standing in this room that has all kinds of things in it. She put a sign on the door of that room that says, don't go in here, this room can hurt you, because there were so many things in that room that as you're reaching around, who knows what is in there. And Esther is standing with her back to some shelves, packing, and something hit her on the head. It was like a rolled up, like a roll of Christmas wrap. And as it bonked her on the head, she picked it up, and it was a painting that Doris had painted. It was a print of a painting that Doris had painted, that they had gifted them with many years before, that Jerry and Esther had never gotten around to getting in a frame. And on the day Esther is wondering about Mac's awareness of them, he picked it up off the shelf and hit her over the head with it. Because all things, everything that is a manifestation, is a result of energy flowing. It goes to the question that we were talking about earlier. In other words, there is no separation. There is no death. There is no loss of consciousness. The only thing that you need to know about that consciousness that has reemerged into non-physical is that it's pure positive energy that doesn't hold any malice or any resentment or any fear or any anger. In other words, it's pure positive energy, you see. And so every thought that has ever been thought exists. And you have the ability to interact with thought in its exaggerated and specific form on all levels. That's why we're encouraging you to find the emotional basis of resonance with the love that is truly you, and then to, from that framework, begin the interaction, the more specific interaction with things. So, helpful?
Oh, very. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.